Can you talk about the coup in Thailand and the significance of this?
Well, it has a lot of significance. As many people know, this is not the first time there's been a coup in Thailand in the last couple of years. What's really going on here, which is different from all the other times, is that this time we have an issue of royal succession. The king of Thailand is quite elderly and, like everybody, is not immortal. And part of this is a response by the military to get rid of what they see as the red shirt menace, the Thaksin menace. Thaksin Shinawatra, the former leader of the red shirts, former leader of Thailand, who is now in exile, is a person the military doesn't like, and they want to rid Thailand of his menace forever. And this coup is part of that effort. It's a very complicated political situation, but it is different from previous occasions.
And why have there been such a string of military coups in Thailand in modern times?
The military is not, it would be a mistake to think that this military is like your typical kleptocratic banana republic military. This military is patriotic in their own way. It's just they have no allegiance to democratic principles. They have allegiance to the crown. And they've stepped in many times when political infighting or political opposition has displeased the palace. And in this case, in some respects, it's no different.
What is the U.S. relationship with the Thai military, John?
Well, one of the biggest things we've been saying is that this ought to be a lesson to the U.S. military, to the U.S. administration, to the U.S. government at large, that all of this effort to promote democratic ideals and human rights through military engagement has been for naught. That's not because engagement doesn't work, but because the engagement that's been used hasn't worked. Year after year, decade after decade, the U.S. military has trained the Thai military, engaged with it, and somehow hoped that its values would be imbued by osmosis to the Thai military. It hasn't happened. So I think it's time to rethink military assistance, and not just here, but across the world.
And what is the importance to the United States of Thailand in Southeast Asia?
Well, Thailand is, one of the United States' oldest allies in the region. I mean, it goes back to the 19th century. It was very important during the Vietnam War, and it remains a very important political and military ally. The Foreign Assistance Act will mandate a cutoff of military assistance to Thailand for the duration of this coup, as long as there's a non-democratically elected government. But presumably, the embassy will continue running and they will continue to negotiate. The United States and the EU and Japan, they have to tell the Thai military, the leadership now, that nothing is going to move forward, trade, investment, nothing until democracy is restored. And hopefully that'll lead to a resolution quickly, but I think it's going to be some time.
Can you talk about who the red shirts are? For an audience in the United States, and I assume other parts of the world, who know very little about Thailand, give us the political geographic landscape.
It's so complicated, but in a nutshell, a few years ago, about 15 years ago, 14 years ago, Thaksin Shinawatra was elected into the prime minister role. He's a red shirt. He's a very wealthy businessman. And he instituted a series of reforms. He had the backing of large swaths of the rural population. He was a little bit unpopular with the elites in the urban setting of Bangkok. He was reelected. He was ultimately thrown out by the military in 2006. And so he's been in exile for many years since, and his sister was elected a few years back. So the red shirts came into power, but without him. They then were thrown from power over a constitutional case that ultimately took the red shirts out of power. They were then thrown from power. But a caretaker government came in, which still had some red shirt members. Throughout all of this, the yellow shirts, which support the monarchy and hate Thaksin, have been trying to sort of overthrow the red shirt menace. They succeeded for a brief period a couple of years ago, but then they were swept from power. And now, apparently upset with their inability to use democracy, they've, basically turned to the military for help, and they've succeeded. So they're monarchists. They don't really support democracy, mainly because it hasn't worked for them. And I have to imagine that many yellow shirts are now happy with what's happened, because they think that the palace will now appoint a non-democratically government that supports the yellow shirt cause, that supports getting rid of red shirts altogether. Politically, though, they're not very far from each other. What's ironic about this all is that it's not as though it's some huge ideological divide.
And are there other progressive, more populist forces that are not being heard from in this struggle?
Well, there's a lot of nonpartisan people. There's a lot of people who just support democracy in the abstract. We've reported on red shirt abuses when the red shirts were in power. We reported on yellow shirt abuses when the yellow shirts were in power. And the bottom line is constitutional democracy is better than military dictatorship. And we obviously would like to see a return to the legal order, regardless of who's in power. And there are a lot of people in Thailand who feel the same way.